You are listening to the Gritty Podcast, where we talk about all things gritty. All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call, and I'm joined by Brad Hunt. And today, we're going to have a quick discussion about the film we just dropped yesterday, day before, of the moose hunt. Chris Tobias shot a giant. We dropped the film on Sunday. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. We're just going to talk a little bit about that hunt. Particularly, we're going to zero in on the shot, discussion of the shot. I had a little discussion with Ryan last night. A few people had questions about the shot, so I think it's good thing to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a hot topic.
A little bit. I mean, overall, most people, there have been a few people who critique the shot very negatively.
And I would say that negative side is very few. There's been a lot, great
There's
shot,
a lot of
Chris.
genuine, questioning of the shot.
Right.
Like, they just want a little more knowledge about it. Then there were others who said perfect shot, So, yeah, I think it's a great discussion. The other thing to talk about, I think is interesting, is rafting the moose out.
Yeah.
We should talk a little bit about some of the rules around taking a moose head out from the kill site, along with the rest of the order that goes in. A few people mentioned that, so we'll get into that in just a minute. Before we do, I'm going to get blazed. Right here is a Mountain Ops blaze shot. If you don't ever get one of these, I think you're missing out. I do like one of these when I'm feeling a little tired, and I was up very late getting the movie ready for a Sunday drop. So anyway, check it out. Use the code GRITTY over at Mountain Ops, and you can get some Ignite, Yeti. What else they got?
Apparel,
yeah.
Tons of new stuff.
The merino wool that I always wear. Battleground hoodie, that's what they call it.
Battleground hoodie, yep. And it's in I believe, the 180-gram weight. Yep. It seems to be the one we really like the most.
And there's some new flavors of Ignite that are pretty dang good. But my tried and true is pink lemonade. I do like Citrus Bliss. I even have warmed up to Bugleberry. A little bit.
I can't get all good. When I drink caffeine, which is not that often, especially when I'm home. On the mountain, I drink it it's probably a sin that I drink so much on the mountain. I didn't
used to drink caffeine until I got older.
But I'm like, that sweet tea lemonade it's my go-to. Like, I find myself grabbing that almost.
That is good.
99% of the time.
For folks who don't like me eating or drinking on the podcast, just bear with me here. And for folks who complain about any coughing or nasal issues, dude, I've been riding this since I got back from 3 months of hunting, which I was very fit and healthy throughout. First day home, I got a nasty, like cough, cold, flu kind of thing.
Phlegm, whatever you want to call it in there.
And it's all I can do not to cough for the past 2 weeks. Everywhere I go, I'm trying not to cough on people. But the show must go on, folks, so give me a break. And I'll do my best. But it's probably something I do need to work on a little bit anyway, because I'm probably a little bit on the I know I'm a little bit on the side of not caring too much if I hawk a loogie. And I know it just my cousin Ben is like, Brian, you're disgusting. I can barely listen to your podcast.
Well, folks,
sometimes.
The good thing on this one is we are sitting here face to face, so I can edit that stuff out. Where on the Zoom call, it's a little harder.
All right, we wasted your time long enough. Like I said, check out Mountain Ops. Use the code GRITTY over there. It always helps us out. But let's get into this discussion about the shot.
Yeah.
First off, here we are on this hunt, and for behind the scenes reference, Ryan and Chris, as I was wrapping up the filming of the tents and the teepees, and they were in a very big hurry to get an evening hunt down before, you're trying to maximize every moment on the hunt. So I'm loading up the camera and trying to get my pack ready. So I have the tripod, the long lens, both camera bodies, and the gimbal, and all this stuff.
Yes.
And they just leave me.
That extra 30 pounds that you pack that they don't have to worry about.
And I'm also, while they're loading and laying out their ground cloths and putting their stuff in their teeth and all that, I'm like filming.
Yep.
Then I'm like in a hurry to get all my stuff loaded into under the shelter. So
I'm
always
you're doing
like
the same thing that they were doing, but 15 minutes behind.
Yeah. So they get up on the hill real quick, and I'm a couple hundred yards down the hill, and I start walking up the hill to meet them, and they're ahead of me, and they've already stumbled upon that moose. Like they got there maybe 3 or 4 minutes before me, just a little bit, but just enough. And the moose was already. He had heard us probably setting up camp. Yeah. Probably heard something, but he heard them walk up on the hill. The moose heard him, got up and started and you see his horns tilt back and forth. And when a bull moose is rutting, they usually do a little grunt sound, and they just walk like that sideways, like boom, boom. You know what I mean? Like
posturing.
Yeah. And so he's walking in. He hasn't even looked in our direction. He's kind of got that just, here I come. Whatever you are, I'm going to take you out, So he's coming. And we're on the knob, and we're starting to get ready. Ryan spotted it, so Ryan, whoever sees it first gets to decide if they want to shoot it or not. Ryan's on the fence because he doesn't know how big it is. And Chris is like, he's legal, that kind of thing.
And it's in the early stages of the moose hunting.
This is like our first. We kind of moved on from the caribou to the moose.
Yep.
So here we are, and Ryan's evaluating it. Now, it didn't really, I don't even know. I think it had 4 brows, but it wasn't obvious. And to be legal, it has to have 4 brow tines on one side or the other, and it has to be at least 50 inches wide. Width-wise, it's hard to tell. The bodies are so big.
Yeah.
And it's something we should touch on. With a moose body that large, you don't realize, especially us, as seeing moose here. Like I had moose down here at my house walking through the other day, and it probably had a 40-inch rack, which looked 55 inches, because the body's so much smaller. And up there, the body is giant.
And when you got a moose that is almost 4 feet in body width, it makes their horns those antlers.
It's harder to tell.
It shrinks them.
Until you know what you're looking at. Because now that I've looked at a lot of film and I did this particular hunt, even after I watched Chris and I looked at Chris's film over and over and over again, when we find the next bull, and then which is the series, the show that drops on Sunday, you'll see, for those that watch that, like it was much easier to judge the moose because I had time to really analyze Chris's moose, and I'm like, there's a lot of similarities here. A lot of guys mentioned using their rifle scopes and at certain yardages.
Oh, and the width of your
the reticle to mark like, okay, he's this wide. So I think that's a really valuable tool.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing people do is they typically measure the width between the eyes or even the face, and then they say that's about this much, and then
4 of those, 4 lengths of
you
your
can get a steel frame. There's lots of tricks to it, but regardless, at this moment, it didn't have an obvious 4 brows.
Yeah.
Like, just for sure. It's like, is that a brow? Is that a 4th or is that not?
Yeah.
And Ryan was a little unsure. I come up and I look at it and I'm like, that's legal. That's legal. And I had spent quite a bit of time looking at moose and hunting moose on a few hunts. I've taken 2 moose.
Right.
I looked at one look at it and I knew what my, 50-inch moose was. And I know I think my Cassiar moose is around 55 or something. Mm-hmm. And so I have some, and Cassiar moose are giant bodied too.
Yeah, right.
So I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, that's legal, dude. It's legal as hell. And Ryan's like, and I said, I'll shoot it. So I start setting up the camera because Ryan had decided he wasn't going to. Mm-hmm. But then, and we talked about this before, like who shoots it. And I'm like, sweet, you know, it's mine.
Ryan passed. Sorry, you're out.
Ryan passed. I'm up. And Tobias was like, I'm a resident. I can shoot whatever I want. And for him, there is no restriction.
Yeah.
He can shoot any bull moose he wants, pretty much. I think there might be I don't remember. It might have to have brows or something, but so don't quote me on it. And the regs differ from unit to unit. But basically, he didn't have the 4 brow tine and the width restriction. Mm-hmm. He could shoot a little tiny Bowinkle type bull, and it was totally fine. So for Chris, there was no. He could shoot whatever. So he's like, guys, if we see something that breaks the legal mark, you guys ought to shoot it.
Right.
You know. So it wasn't a debate whether I should shoot it or not. Ryan's like, yeah. Ryan had this goal when we got on the plane. We're heading there, and he's like 70-inch or bust. And he's like,
I mean,
like, if I see a 70-inch 5 miles from the river, we're going to kill it. When he saw Chris's moose on the ground, he's like, yeah, no, it's not an option.
It's not going to take 70 inches.
He's like, I can't imagine it being bigger than this.
Yeah,
like
right.
60 inches is so big. To get 70 it's nonsensical.
Yeah, I plugged that little clip of you guys, and it's like, even Chris, the excitement and just the sheer size of that moose, and you guys are walking up on it. I mean, it's wow. It's holy smokes. Like the things, like seeing Ryan's expression. You don't see yours because you're behind the camera.
Well,
you hear you talking.
When I was in Dustin Row and I was with Tanis and Doran Barkman, and I was up there with Backcountry BC and beyond, when we saw some great moose, and they have some legendary size moose up there. Yet, this moose, it's funny because I got a chance to Green Tree shot a moose up there, Adam Green Tree, and I shot a moose up there.
Yep.
And I got to see up close and personal these two giant bodied moose. And Chris's moose is bigger than both of those by quite a bit. And then Ryan takes a moose. Spoiler alert. I think you guys probably saw the photos already.
Yeah,
anyway,
right.
And it's bigger than everybody's. So, so Ryan had in his mind this. He didn't know. He's like, I just want big.
Yeah. He saw Adam Grenda's big 70-inch moose, and he was like, I want that.
Yeah. So we sat there, and anyway, so of course, I got to run the camera, so I'm getting the camera all set up, and that moose is coming in. Well, we were skylined, but I think as long as we were quiet and stayed low, it was going to be okay. But there was a little bit of movement when he stopped. I think he had heard stuff long before he saw anything.
Right.
And he had heard things. That's why he just started walking over, but he was inside the trees. So as soon as he kind of hit an opening and had a clear view, he looked up to where he saw the sound, where he heard the sound, and he saw something he didn't like. So he froze and he looked at us for a minute or so. Then he popped his head up. Well, I'm filming him. I'm just getting it dialed. And right then and there, I saw the body language on the film. And Chris had already got set up with his rifle over here. I still would have to get my rifle ready. And I say, Chris, just shoot him. Just shoot him. Quick, shoot him. Because I could tell he wasn't going to stick around.
Yeah.
He was done.
Yeah, but now it's fight or flight.
And so I turned the camera to slow motion because I had been filming in real time, like 24 frames a second. So I turn it to slow motion to capture the sort of the shot and the speed of the shot. And just as I turn it off and switch the setting to slow motion, the bull spins and starts running. Well, so what you guys see, you can see the video looks different. That is the phone scope. It's Chris's phone or Ryan's phone. I think it's Chris's iPhone using the all-in Digiscope adapter.
Yep.
And he's filming the moose. I did the best I could with iPhone footage through a spotter.
I bet you 90% of the people didn't notice that was iPhone footage. It has a Brian Call touch to it, people.
You can tell. It's not. It definitely looks different.
Yeah, right.
But I tried to match it as best I could. I did the best I could. But the bull spins and runs. I get the slow motion turned on, and what you see is the bull probably 50 yards from where he was standing, and I film him as he's running. And Chris, at that time, I'm also holding another camera, which I hand off to Ryan and say, Ryan, film Chris.
Yeah.
So Ryan is watching the bull and holding a camera off to the side, filming Chris best he can. And as he's running away, Chris realizes he doesn't have a clear shot where he's at with the bull broadside because the trees are in his way, even though Ryan and I have an unobstructed shot from where our position. And so Chris is like, well, I better move, shift to the right. So at that point, that moose is sketched out.
Yeah.
As Chris moves, the moose decides, I believe, okay, the reason the moose stopped was because Chris calls, yeah. Real quick as he's running, after he spun and run, I get the camera turned on, and Chris goes, and sounds like a cow. And the moose slows down, turns, and he gives us that broadside. Well, then Chris has to shift to the right to get an open shot because he's a little lower on that elevated knob. There. So he moves probably 3 feet in elevation up the hill where Brian and I are kind of sitting, and he gets set up, and he's in a better spot. And then The moose goes through the trees, and I think he's gone forever, maybe. And that sucker turns, and he just couldn't help himself. The sound of that cow, the rut. He decides to peek back through the trees. He feels safe. He's on the other side of the tree line. He peeks through the trees because maybe it is a nice, pretty lady over there. And he peeks through, and he's looking. Now, at this point, he's quartering to.
Yeah.
He's not broadside. He's not necessarily front on.
No, he's quartered to you.
He's quartering to.
You know.
Tough shot to make.
Yep.
You know, there's ways to do it. And he's 300 yards, more or less. Like, he's probably 300, 310, right in there.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris's rifle is a 300.
It's a 300 PRC. And then he has, I believe, 195 grain.
Bullet.
Yep, the bulldozers.
Bulldozer. And,
I mean, Chris shoots a lot. Like, he hand loads on all his rifles.
He built these loads. He has the rifle zeroed at 300, by the way. So he has what he has 1.5 inch groups.
At 300.
At 300.
Yep.
With the bullet he's got hand loaded. And this bull is basically at 300.
Yep.
And so, you know, Chris knows his setup. He knows that he's going to be within 1.5 inches, you know, give or take the conditions of the little bit of wind, not much.
Yep.
I mean, it's pretty still. He's going to be within 2 inches of where he's aiming.
Right.
And up, down, sideways, whatever.
Yep.
And what a lot of people, because there are people who critique the shot on YouTube. We got a few comments like, there was like one that said irresponsible AF. We got one that was like stupid shot. Some comments like that. And and I don't think they really analyzed it. They just saw a frontal and they just saw
a shot.
And the bullet enters.
Yeah.
Where would you say it enters?
I mean, it is, to me, like looking on the film, because I wasn't there. I wasn't there during the hunt. I didn't see the animal on the ground other than through the video. But, I mean, that bullet is right behind the shoulder. Like, it is almost at the crease of the shoulder, like if you were taking a broadside shot. How the animal has a crease right there. I mean, it is right behind that crease.
Definitely the tip, the kind of the top part of the shoulder as well.
Yep.
Not like down low. It's not mid-body.
It's a higher.
At all. It's higher.
And what, you know, just talking with you and Ryan and stuff, and what people don't realize, and even myself, until, you know, hear it from you guys, is how much higher you are up on that knob than the moose. So you're shooting down.
That's what people don't realize, because I've zoomed in. Yep. I'm giving you a 4K, up and close and personal look at this moose, a slow motion visual. What you don't see with vapor trails often is trajectory.
Yeah.
Necessarily, unless you're over the shoulder of the shooter.
Directly behind it.
And I wasn't. Yep. I was quite a ways to the right of Chris.
Right.
And so what that does is when the bullet comes into this frame, it's messing with the trajectory in your mind.
Right.
And what it looks like for people who are just looking at it, you can innocently look at it and go, well, it entered at the top of the shoulder there. It's going to exit at the top of the back, you know, on the offside somewhere. It's not going to hit the lung. It's not going to hit anything vital. It's not going to hit anything important.
Yep.
Not a great shot. Why would you put it there? What you don't realize is that there's a considerable drop in elevation from where Chris is up. He's in an elevated spot. And that's why when we analyzed the moose on the ground post-shot, I did a little freeze frame where I showed you the first exit hole and the second exit hole.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people said, not a lot, I should say just a handful of people said,
small handful.
Bad first shot, but at least he made up for it on the second shot. Actually, the exact opposite is true. The first shot was very, very well done, and the second shot was garbage.
Yeah.
It looked like the second shot
I wouldn't say garbage. I would say, like, I mean, it's in the shoulders, but it's a little far forward.
It's a muscle hit.
It's a muscle hit.
It didn't hit vitals.
Yes.
Now, it doesn't mean it didn't seriously stop him from walking anywhere.
Right.
It didn't seriously damage some main arteries.
Yeah.
I can't say that for sure. I don't think it did. It looks like where it exits and where it enters is mostly just front shoulders.
Yeah, but that first shot, like, you could not walk up there and put that bullet.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really.
Place.
If you look at where the first shot, enters, like you said, kind of high, right at the crease, tip of the shoulder. And I said, high shoulder, Chris, and went in high shoulder. And even me, I'm looking through the camera zoomed in, and I am looking at it going, I'm not sure if that was good or bad. And often when you're looking through, when you're not analyzing the body position of the animal, and I do this naturally, when I have a crosshair set up and I put it on the animal, I instantly think, aim for the exit. Where would I like the bullet to leave the body? And I ignore the entry hole. And I do that with a bow. I practice that a lot to get that ingrained in me, because so many times guys will, like on a steep downhill shot, they'll aim for where they want the arrow to go in instead of where they want the arrow to exit.
They're about this much too low. I mean, we see it when we do 3D.
It'll enter the side of the deer mid-body. And it'll exit in the belly. It's so steep, and it will hit nothing important.
And we see it a lot when we go shoot with people and guys and gals and whoever that, like on these archery 3D shoots, and we say, hey, we're not shooting for points, we're shooting for kill shots. Like, you don't realize, maybe quartered a little bit, and
we had that conversation with Greg Ritz. We had a great podcast on that. When you get good at aiming for exits, you start realizing that when you walk up and you pull your arrow out of the foam target, you're like, dude, I would never have selected that as my aiming point. You have to envision the exit. And when Chris puts those crosshairs up, if he's like, okay, the body's angled a little bit, I'm going to put it right here. I wanted to exit mid-body offside. He's aiming mid-body offside. That's where the crosshair is. Mid-body offside after it goes through all the important stuff, both lungs, liver, diaphragm, etc., and out, right? And so when you aim that way and you shoot, even post-shot immediately, you're surprised where the bullet went in.
Exactly. Well, and the thing is, too, is like when you get, and like
you
Chris,
even doubt yourself.
You doubt yourself. But even Chris, he has that experience now. I mean, Chris has killed a lot of animals, and what you have to be careful of it, or, aware of is, okay, yes, I'm aiming for the exit, but then you also, okay, what in that path of exit dictates, like,
do I have to shoot through?
Do I have to shoot through? Do I have to shoot through a giant shoulder? And you can see where Chris puts that bullet. It is just behind that shoulder. Like, he's not hitting that big, giant bone.
There are guys on some forums that had asked, would you put the bullet there again, Chris? Maybe wouldn't you put it right in his chest? Would you aim center of the shoulder? And the answer is no. You couldn't quite ask for a better placed shot. Because if he had gone like a lot of times quartering to with a rifle, a lot of guys will just go, I'm going through that shoulder, man. That moose is giant. It's a lot
There's
of
a
bone
lot of density
and
there.
a lot of muscle that it has to get through to then get into the vitals. Now, with that heavy load and all that kind of stuff, is it going to go? It probably would do just fine. Probably wouldn't exit.
No.
Probably wouldn't exit after chewing up. It'd get into the vitals, but I don't really, you never know. And especially if you shatter one of those moose bones, what's the bullet going to do after that? And so you're right. He aimed for the exit, but he also was like, okay, maybe let's not just go center punch the shoulder. And so he moved it over and he put it in there where he could sneak past the thick part, but also still have it exit.
Especially like looking at the lungs on a moose and stuff. I mean, they're gigantic. And so he's like, okay, I mean, obviously you're not going to take that shot necessarily on maybe a smaller game animal as well.
Because that's another.
Even quartered away, as they're quartered away to you, your vital target, if you're looking like this, they're broadside, and here's your vitals. Well, if you turn like this, quartered away,
2 foot wide shot exponentially gets more and more narrow,
and you got a
thread the
4-inch window versus a 20-inch window.
And Chris mentioned that. He said, Brian, even a moose quartering 2, you can't think of it as a whitetail. It's like a 2 by 2 foot area of kill. In that, if the bullet had gone a little further back or a little further forward, you still have massive set of lungs that you're still hitting.
Diaphragm, everything.
It's not like aiming at a little deer at 300. You're aiming at a target 3 times that size, 4 times that size.
And again, I think it goes back to how much Chris shoots as well. He has that confidence. He knows at whatever distance. I know what to dial to. I know what my rifle is going to shoot at.
Lampers made this comment. Folks who criticize a shot like that are often criticizing it based on their own experience level, their own skill level, and they're thinking, not a great shot. But everybody's different in that regard. That's why I tend not to criticize like archers that I know are very skilled, like a Levi Morgan.
Right.
I tend to be like, I'm not the world's best shooter. So, how could I expect Levi to hold the same standards for what is an ethical shot as me?
Yeah, right.
And so when you cast judgment on someone else, it's kind of like, well, I don't shoot. I didn't hand load or build those loads. I didn't spend the time behind the rifle. I don't know for a fact what my exact groups are at that range, because I've shot it so many times. And so for Chris, and if you notice, a lot of people are like, patience is virtuous. We all agree with that.
Yeah.
And, sometimes, it's just better to wait. And I agree with that too. But it's always a balance. Every time you pull the trigger, every time you loose an arrow, you're balancing between the shot opportunity that's been presented and your ability to make it, and whether you can get a better shot opportunity or not, and whether this is a great one that you can make. It's this game you play. And every time one gets fired away, there's always an element of gambling that's involved in that.
Yep.
Hopefully you're hedging on the side of certainty. And that's the goal. And Chris, for his part, that's what he felt. He felt like, if you watch the shot, and I have the raw film.
Yep.
Chris takes a long time before he squeezes the trigger. That moose is there for quite a while. He's looked at it. He's asked for a range. Ryan's like, it's going to be 310. He's like, okay. He settles. And honestly, I didn't think he was going to take that shot. I thought he was going to wait for the moose to walk closer, maybe turn sideways. I didn't know. And it was quite a long time. I'm sitting there waiting and waiting. And the bullet goes off. I was like, whoa, he took it.
Yeah, right.
And, but it was a calculated shot. There was math. There was decisions being made. It wasn't just a reckless shot by any stretch.
No, not at all.
And so I think a lot of people, when they looked at that, they just are looking at it from the perspective, from a limited understanding of the shot. And when I did the screenshot of the bull, and you can see the exit just in front of the rear back leg, offside, mid-body, you realize he hit both lungs.
Yeah, dang.
He hit the lungs. He hit the diaphragm, the liver diaphragm kind of stuff as it went through. And it's hard to actually choose something a little bit better at that angle.
Yeah.
So, that's a great. The other thing people mentioned was when you take a sketchy shot like that, the animal suffers longer than it should. And people will look at, that moose gets hit. He runs a little bit. He stands there. Chris shoots again. That shot was a little bit more of a rush, because once you put a bullet in an animal, you're just trying to make sure you get him again. It didn't look like, and that was a perfectly broadside shot. It looked like that one was a little bit high and forward. But I don't know what brush was in the way, trees or whatever. I think Chris was just, because you can see on the camera, I can't see it actually.
Yeah.
I had the bull in the frame, but
I didn't rush. And
when he shot, I couldn't see it really, and I didn't know I had it in the frame when he pulled the trigger. I was searching with my eyes, trying to, where is he, looking on the camera. But he hits it again, and you can hear the smack.
Right.
He hits it good, and so that moose goes another few feet. Well, it's about a minute and a half between the shot and when he falls, a minute and a half to 2 minutes.
Yep, from the first shot.
From the first shot. When Ryan shot his first caribou, it was about the same amount of time before it expired. It ran quite a ways. Did you notice? My caribou's in front, and it's running, and then it stops, and then it wobbles, and it falls over. And then while it's laying there and I'm setting up, it was enough time for me to shift, to film Ryan's bull running.
Yep.
Once they stopped, I started to shift over, and Ryan and I traded places, get set up, get the rifle on it, get the bull, and Ryan's bull is still alive.
And some of that is, gets not necessarily cut out, but it's you
sped up
a little bit or something, just for the anticipation
continuity and stuff
of the film.
Yeah, for sure. And then I shoot my bull and pierce at Ryan's antler. Shoot through Ryan's antler, put a bullet hole in his antler. And when that bullet hole goes through Ryan's antler on his bull, it's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it moving a little bit. So the second one was even more. That bull was gigantic. I mean, for caribou, it was a big caribou, biggest bodied one we had taken. When he shot that one, it runs all the way back to the herd, crosses that little creek, splashes through it, gets to the other side, and you can see him start to do the death wobble, and then he goes down, and then he kicks. And folks, what I show the public, has to be somewhat managed, because a lot of people, myself included, I hate the part about the suffering.
Yeah.
I love the part about the achievement, getting it done. There's a part of me that feels a tremendous degree of compassion and sadness when the animal dies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And there's this in hunting, it's this mixture of emotions that everybody goes through it a different way. I find that butchering, cutting up, breaking down, packing out the animal and eating it is a cathartic part of the whole process, because it starts to become something that you consume, you eat to stay alive. It's as though you just actually feel an overwhelming your sadness at the death of the animal. It's gone forever. It's over. You caused it. Mm-hmm. It sort of gets subsumed at that point by gratitude for the sustenance it provides and the experience and the circle of life kind of stuff. And you walk away with that animal after you've butchered it, and you have to do the whole thing beginning to end to really understand it. And so I cut away from Ryan's bull.
Yep.
But that thing took 3 to 4 minutes to expire.
Yeah.
And it ran a long way as well. It lived the longest by far of all the bulls that we shot.
Gigantic hole that
and it was a perfect broadside lungs. Shot, both lungs.
Yep.
Like Ryan mentioned to me, he's like, Brian, people are watching on films these shots where they shoot and the animal just drops and it's over. He's like, that's not realistic. Those of us who have hunted a long time, he named like 4 animals that he shot double lung, destroyed them, and they lived for some 5-10 minutes, and he couldn't explain why.
Yeah.
We were together on a hunt where I shot a buck, and he's like, Brian, that buck lived for an hour, and he's like, the first shot, the second shot, the third shot, he's like, I don't understand how it kept going.
Right.
And then you have shots that it just seems like they just fall over.
Boom.
Yep. Right away. Yeah. So it's really hard to judge. You never know what bullets do when they hit a body.
Mm-hmm. And I think some of it just comes down to the animal.
Or an arrow.
It's an arrow, but a lot of it, I think it's like that living instinct that's inside of us, inside of an animal. It's like they don't want to die.
Yeah.
And they
there's who knows how many factors play a role in the fight to live.
Yeah.
But I'll say this, Chris's moose expired in a shorter window than the caribou. So people who were complaining about the fact that the moose limped along and then fell over, time it.
Yeah.
It's under 2 minutes.
Yep.
It's a giant animal. So I've shot a couple of moose now. All of them took at least 2 minutes to expire with good shots. And so when you shoot an animal that big even with a giant bullet, goats are similar. Like their lungs are so big.
Yep.
It seems like mountain goats, you can shoot them. You can shoot them through the lungs 3 times, and they just live for 5 or 10 minutes regardless.
Right.
A lot of people, that's why they shoot them through both shoulders.
Yep, so they can't move, and then they can...
For us, the meat is too important, so we don't do that kind of stuff. It's a double lung, and we preserve every stitch of it that we can, including the heart and the liver and everything else.
Yep, exactly.
Which brings me to the next talking point to just consider was a few people were like, aren't you supposed to take the animal... all the meat out and the antlers last from the kill site in Alaska. And I believe that's how it's written in the regulations. But back to Chris. Chris is a resident.
Right.
And in areas where the antlers...
there's no restriction.
Yeah, there's no antler restriction. Where with Chris, there wasn't.
Yep.
For Ryan and I, yes, we had to shoot a moose of a certain age class, size, that kind of thing by
those
law.
Rules apply to you guys.
That rule applies. The regulations that Chris said, when you pack a moose antlers out in a non-antler restricted unit, you can take it out in whatever order you need to.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that regard, it wasn't for Chris, that didn't really apply. And in addition to that, we're dealing with grizzly everywhere. Anytime you get a moose on the ground in a place like that, there's always the threat of losing it to a grizzly bear.
Mm-hmm.
And not only the meat and the animal itself, but also your life. So, and the other side is that you end up killing a grizzly bear that didn't need to die because out of self-defense. None of it is a good outcome.
No.
And getting the and it's dark, dude. It's dark. And so we don't want to leave the moose overnight because a grizzly could claim it overnight and then it's gone from us. And for us, we're not just there for an experience and for horns. We're there for 500 pounds of moose meat that we're going to take home. Exactly. Chris lives on all the caribou and the moose, and so do his family members and other people in his circle. And so this is a sustenance trip as much as it is an experience and an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
So, in this case, as we're getting, as soon as a piece comes off, it's going in the boat and it's going down the canal to the electric fence.
The electric fence.
And same with the caribou. When we got the caribou done, we were ferrying meat and stuff away from the kill site as fast as possible.
Right.
So that once we got done, we could, everything was at least 200 or 300 yards from the gut pile and the smelliness and the bear attracting kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then you got the clean meat and the horns, a couple 100 yards, 100 yards. And then we'd move it another 100 yards until we could get it as far from that kill site as possible over to here. Same thing with the moose. We're trying to get it out as fast as possible. So for safety and to make sure we don't end up killing a grizz doesn't end up killing us and we don't lose what we have. Yeah. I understand the law in Alaska being there to prevent. I would say it's there so that to prevent the sort of thing where a hunter only pulls out the horns and says something like, well, I went back to get the meat, but a grizz took it over.
Yeah.
And he conveniently has a set of horns.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I think it's to avoid a dishonest to kind of get out in front of that sort of dishonest move. Mm-hmm. The other reason probably is image. It doesn't look good when a hunter prioritizes antlers over meat and packs that out before he packs out the whole animal. It says what his priorities are in this, and it has the stigma of trophy hunting attached to it. For us, it's just flat out practicality.
Yeah.
Get every part out as fast as you can to the electric fence.
Yeah.
Because we care about all of it.
Exactly.
All of it.
Exactly.
And when Chris's head came off of the bull, the only thing left, I think, at that point was carving the ribs with a saw. We had one set, but not the second set. And then I think the heart we were digging for. And there's just a little bit left, but it was going to take 20 minutes, 15 minutes to get it all. Well, we don't want to sit in an empty boat there.
Yeah.
To extend our time in the woods another 30 minutes or 40 minutes. It's like, take the head now, come back, get the last bit of ribs.
Yep.
And that's kind of how that happened. Plus, we're talking about moving it from the kill site like 200 yards.
Yeah.
It's not like we were taking it miles, and it wasn't as though someone abandoned the kill site either. There was two people there the whole time, one guarding and one butchering, while someone dangerously floated the ambush canal.
The little bait floats down the canal.
So anyway, all that's to add some clarity there. In the case of Chris, that regulation wasn't applicable in the same way. And I imagine that's because in a unit where there's no antler restrictions, but I don't really know exactly why they wouldn't have that rule in the same way, other than you can shoot any moose you want, and so it's I don't know, residents and non-residents. There's different rules.
I would think it would have a lot to apply with residents and non-residents, because maybe a resident or a non-resident doesn't want to pay to fly all the meat back. If you're that way,
could be, yeah.
And now they come home with it, or the Grizz story took it, and you're coming home with just a giant set of elk or moose antlers, and I don't know,
dude. For us, and anybody who watches this show and follows us, the meat is the trophy as much as anything else is. We go to great pains to take really good care of our meat, from bear meat to deer meat to elk to moose, whatever it is. In New Zealand, there's no law that says you have to take all your chamois and all your tar meat out, right. And often the locals don't. Yep. They shoot them, grab the cape and the horns, and they grab like some back straps, and they leave the rest of it there. It's an invasive species. They're culling it for various reasons, and but the waste of the meat, in a sense, is sort of difficult for us. We packed everything out we killed. We packed every stitch of the meat out, the hide and the horns. But we got some locals we ran into that were like, even people who that were part of helping us get in there. They're like, dude, why? Like, why would you pack hundreds of pounds of meat out?
Yep.
And what are you going to do with it? We flew it home to the United States.
Yeah.
And then we consumed it here. And it was a part of the overall process. So for us, whether the regs are there or not, we're taking as much meat as we can and always have.
I mean,
that's just
most states don't require bear meat to be taken out, and
that's another point. You're absolutely right.
Bring it all out. I mean, it's one of our favorite foods.
You're absolutely right. That's another thing that bothers me is there is one of the states we hunt where we kill bears in every year, lots of bears.
Yep.
You only have to bring the hide and skull.
Skull and hide, that's it.
There is no law that says you have to bring the meat out.
Nope.
Which is sort of mind-boggling to us.
Yeah.
And we have, in fact, brought piles of meat out, brought the skull out, and then brought a portion of the hide out, like with evidence of sex or something attached. Not that you had to, but we just did it. And then got in trouble because we didn't bring the whole hide.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we brought the meat, like all the meat, and we don't have to. And we brought the hide because we talked to some folks, and they're like, just give us a patch of hide. Then you talk to a different wildlife guy, and he's like,
bring the whole
I don't care
hide.
that you brought the meat out. You wasted a hide. And you're like, what?
That hide, like, even if I get it done or I don't get it done, what I care about is the meat. Like, that hide, even if we get it tanned up, it's like usually the hide a lot of times.
I have so many bear hides. I hunt bears for meat.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think some, it's upside down.
Yeah.
To have the regs that way. And again, it goes back to, we're not there to waste meat, dude. We go out there, we kill bears, we bring all the meat home, even though by law, we absolutely do not have to.
Yeah.
So when someone does criticize us because, hey, you brought the head out first, it's just like, guys, if you know us, that's not how we're wired. That's not how we hunt. That's not what we believe in. You're attributing something to us that's just not. Doesn't even stack up against our whole resume of our life and what we've done, thus far. Then we don't have to have a regulation in place for us to cherish and take care of the meat.
No, not at all.
Just a fact.
Not at all.
I guess what else came up as a question people had?
A lot was the pack out. The rafts and how you're using them, and I mean, there's been a lot of stuff on that. I don't know if you want to
talk about it,
or get Ryan on here, the rafting expert.
I think Ryan and I can talk a little bit about the raft again.
Yep.
Let's get into that. Before I do, folks, I want to remind you that we have a couple big, huge giveaways going on.
Yep.
We have the if you buy a Gritty hat, Gritty shirt, Gritty sweatshirt, whatever, you can win a Leupold scope mounted on top of a brand new Weatherby 6.5 RPM.
Yep. The Mark 5
Mark 5 Hunter rifle. Mm-hmm. So that's a sweet setup. It's a $2,000 setup. All you got to do is spend $10 at the Gritty shop.
Yep.
and you will be entered to win.
One entry.
So if you go to briancall.com and just click on shop, you'll find the gear shop, or you can just type in grittystore.com and you'll find it there.
Yep.
And every hat and sweatshirt, every $10 you spend gets you one entry.
Yeah.
For the thing and for the rifle, and we're going to pick the winner on December 18th.
Yep.
Which is coming up.
It's coming up
in about a week from Sunday. So if you want to get in on that, they are low in stock. We are low in stock, but there's new shipments coming in. But there's also like decals and water bottles and a few other things that are that are Gritty branded that are cool that you can get in on. So check that out and get entered to win. And then we have a big $6,000 hunt package with a PSE bow, dozen Black Eagle arrows,
canvas cutter bedroll,
Peaks teepee,
Peaks trekking poles,
gators,
all that good
headlamp.
stuff. Got a new Everly stock bino harness.
Yep.
An initial ascent backpack. Broadheads from
everything you need to be the whole kit and caboodle.
It is somewhat tailored to an archery setup, but you will be set for your archery setup.
Yeah, it's a $6,000 package, and to be entered to win there, you just go to Peaks, use the code Gritty, and every $10 you spend over there gets you entered to win as well. It's one entry.
.com.
So. Yeah, peaksequipment.com, and they are also low on stock, but I think Bryce just got a shipment in. Within the next day or two, if it's not there now.
Yes.
And if you want to get in on that, sign up for the text message email when stuff comes in stock, because it will probably sell out in a 48-hour window or so each time the items drop.
They go fast.
It's been a supply chain issue and stuff like that. It's been hard to keep things in stock. I think for everybody we're working with, it's been hard to keep stuff in stock. Peaks is no exception.
Yep, Ryan knows about it.
Lampers is having trouble at Stealthy. So anyway, if you're interested and you need some of that gear, help us out. Use the code Gritty and get yourself entered to win. When you use code Gritty at all those places, you're going to save as well. So you win on both ends. You get a discount and you get entered to win. You get some cool stuff. So the rafting, I got to tell you, moose are intimidating. They're super daunting. Getting one out of the backcountry is a challenge. Chris literally killed it 40 feet from the canal. Little canal there. And when we loaded the moose into the raft was sketchy as hell because it's rated for 400 pounds. And by the time you throw a quarter in and the extra meat and stuff, and you've got 250 pounds in there, then you got a 200-pound guy. And you don't want to make multiple trips that you don't have to.
And it doesn't take much on a moose to exceed that weight limit because, I mean, you take a front.
You can't bone it out.
A quarter, because it's all bone in.
Yeah.
You take a quarter, I mean, that's 130, 140 pounds. You're already at 340 pounds with your body in there. And
yeah, it was sketchy. And then when you come out of the canal, the main river's fast.
Yeah.
It's flowing. And when you come out, it was really hard to enter the main river without getting flipped. That thing wanted to roll you. There's this little sketchy spot right as you come out of the canal. And it was like, you're trying to navigate it. But you know what? It was worst case is you fall in, you get wet. It wasn't cold enough to die or freeze to death or anything.
Well, and the other
it was
thing,
chest deep.
You guys
touch
have
the bottom.
A stove inside a teepee.
Yep.
You know?
Exactly. You always have fire. And so anyway, we that was real handy. But when you watch the next episode, you're going to see, and I don't. It might be an episode after that. People are asking for a pack out. Mm-hmm. Well. We kind of bypassed the caribou pack out because I just didn't have time to edit all of that. We have a whole 40-minute show we could do on just the pack out of the caribou. Chris's moose, we showed the pack out more or less. It was just hitting the canal and dropping it on the bar. But Ryan shot his moose 600 yards from the river, and it might as well have been 20 miles. I mean, geez, it's a process. So we had pulled it over the tundra in a sled, putting it on your back and walking across the tundra in a backpack with the load, especially the two rear quarters.
Yeah.
You could do it for sure. You and I have done stuff like that.
Yep.
But we felt like we're not getting any younger, and pulling it is easier on the body, even though it's probably... You got to be conditioned for it. But thankfully, I've done a lot of CrossFit sled pulling and stuff, and I do this kind of thing, and I'm built for it.
Yeah.
So I pulled 3/4 over, maybe 4. Ryan helped with one of the quarters, and he otherwise he took all the bits and pieces with Chris inside the backpack.
Yep.
And it took us hours and hours and a lot of physical labor, the three of us, to just get it 600 yards, just to transport the moose 600 yards.
Like on one of those bulls, minimum 1,400 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the entrails and stuff, there's a lot of weight there, but all that weight is what you have to bring out: ribs, quarters, neck, the head,
everything.
The only thing you're leaving is the spine, because you cut the ribs off, and
now
that's it.
Because we were so close to the river, and this moose is so big, and the hide is gorgeous.
Yeah.
And Ryan isn't into mounts, but he does like rugs. He does like fur, and he does like horns, and he's looking at that coat, and he's looking at the water. He's looking at the coat, and he's like, when am I going to kill a moose with a raft that can get it out of the backcountry? When am I kill a moose like this?
With this color variation.
Yeah, and so he's like, Brian, I think I want to keep the whole hide, like full body mount type,
right? Like
ankles to the neck, the hide, and that hide is like an inch and a half thick or something. And so we pulled it off, and we ended up dragging that, and it weighed as much as a quarter.
Yeah.
And we got it over to the bank, and then Ryan got it to a taxidermist, and we're both like super keen to see. I've never really seen a moose hide just laid out.
Yeah.
And we laid it out like on the beach there in the grass, and we're looking at it, and it is like, I don't know, it's like 6 feet by 7 or something. Like, it's as big as the biggest Kodiak brown bear rug that you've seen.
Yeah.
But it's moose hide instead.
Right.
And it's got so many colors and variations, and it's gorgeous, and it's thick. The fur is more coarse than a bear hide, of course, right. But it has its own charm. And I'm like, dude, you could throw that, in the center of a room and just use it as a true rug. The thing's, it was huge. We'll see how it looks, but we did bring it out of the backcountry, and Ryan got it home.
Hillary's going to have to get her $13 million mansion to put that sucker in.
Yeah. So that was interesting. It'll be very interesting to see the horns when they're done, because Ryan usually just lets meat rot off his horns in the backyard, and then he hangs them in the garage, or he'll throw them in a boiler for a minute, and he hardly even scratches them clean. They're filthy. But the special ones like this, he actually got a beetle work done on it.
Yeah, I can't wait to hold that sucker just to see it. Just the sheer mass that
funny.
Bull has. Spoiler alert again.
Yeah, I have 2 moose. One of them's, not a Canadian, not a like Alaskan
not like
type,
a true Yukon Alaskan
type moose.
Yeah,
and but it's one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
It's much smaller moose, but it was my first moose, and it was real special, and it was kind of. It was surreal just having one like that. It's more like a Shiras, And then my other moose up there with Tanis and Dorn, just massive. But it's interesting, the body massive. But when I popped in, I got my antlers over at Mountain Ops hanging up in their offices. After I got back from this trip, I swung by there, and I was just staring at my antlers on the wall, and I was like, you know what? Ryan's moose is considerably larger. And then Green Trees are still there.
Yeah.
So I went and looked at Adams, and I'm like, Adams' moose has some big paddles.
Yeah.
Real big, beautiful paddles. And I looked at his, and I'm like, yeah, Chris and Ryan really did well.
Yeah.
And Ryan was talking to a few dudes that hunt moose, and some guys that are like pros, and they had mentioned, like, you guys killed it. Where you guys went, how you did it. They kind of know some of the ins and outs. They're like, you guys
that
defied
really doesn't
the odds.
happen that much.
Yeah. So I'm stoked how it turned out. I mean, the moose that they both took are incredible.
Yeah. And what's interesting is you got 2 big bull moose. I mean, because Chris's is no slouch at all. Chris's is a stud.
Yeah, I would argue
that they're so different in, if you want to call it, not even score, but it's different in its character, because like Chris's and the paddles are super thick, not as big a bases on the antler.
Yeah,
and Ryan's are like gigantic.
They're like
bases.
opposites.
They're totally opposites. Ryan's is kind of that square, not boxy, but it's not splayed out like Chris's is.
Yeah,
and then you got just some mass that go on those front brows and everything.
They're so different.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for people to see more of them, pictures next side by side.
Yep.
Because it's like a typical and non-typical that score the same.
Yeah.
You guys will be like, oh, that one's better. Oh, that one's better. Depending on personal preference. And when you look at Chris and Ryan's both together, like just on the beach there, and you're like it's hard to say one is better
more
than the other.
Than the other, yeah.
Especially in terms of age or size. In some ways, because they're what one has really
they're unique in their own way.
Yeah,
and I mean, I look at it exactly.
Ryan's bull has more mass at the bases by far. Body seemed bigger, which is hard to believe, but they're just different.
Yeah,
though. But Ryan's is older. There's no question about that. Has more mass. No question about that. But he did not carry mass in the paddles.
Right.
They're very thin and they're cupped. And Chris's are very thick, like plywood boards, and they're wide and tall.
Yep.
And they're thick. Like Chris's paddles, the boards, they're like wooden boards, and Ryan's real thin.
Yeah.
But Ryan's mass on the tines and the fronts and stuff are wild. Moose are just the coolest. I mean, they're a neat animal.
Yeah.
I'm hoping you guys are enjoying that series. The caribou were fantastic as well. So special trip. People have been asking, how do you do one like that? How much does it cost? Logistics and so forth. And Ryan and I will get into some of that kind of stuff on a later podcast.
Yep.
But for now, I hope you guys are enjoying the show. Can't thank you enough for leaving all the comments and sharing it out across the social platforms, because we're booming. Like, our show is really reaching a lot of folks, getting a lot of really great messages. People are enjoying our adventures and how we're telling the story.
Positive feedback is, man, like, there are thousands, not just hundreds, there are thousands of comments that are like, best there is on YouTube, and just shows, attests to the hard work that goes into making these films, both in the field and in the production side of things.
Yeah. I'm very, very appreciative for all of that. Hope to bring you more. I always, I think a lot of people who create content like this, or that really take pride in their work, they always kind of worry about maintaining their production level and still wowing people and stuff like that. And for me, I really don't think that way. Because I had some people mention, how are you going to top the last one? And it's like, hunts are what they are.
Yep.
They either, some are spectacular and some are a flop.
Yep.
You and I went out for 12 days and saw 2 does.
Right.
That's it.
I mean, it was an epic.
Lampers was with us.
He saw 2 adventure, does. And hell of a hiking trip.
I think Ryan saw 4 deer the whole time. But the point is, hunts are what they are. My job is to tell the story, not to make it any more than it was or any less than it was. This is just the story. This is what happened, folks. This is how it went down. And that's it. And I think when film guys and people that are trying to create, tell a story of a hunt, they go too hard to embellish it or make it something more than it was or make it spectacular. And to me, and hunts are what they are.
Yeah.
Just let it be, let it breathe, let it be what happened, and just that's what you get. Yep. That's what it was. And don't try to make it into, some deep, meaningful end of life kind of experience that you want to share with the world. I mean, if it was that, fine.
Right.
But don't artificially contrive it into that to try to make something that people find compelling. It's like that authenticity isn't real. I mean, just keep it. Just tell the story.
Yeah.
This is what happened, and let it ride.
Yep.
And so, to me, I don't feel the pressure to, in the filmmaking sense, to make it something better than it was. I do feel the pressure, and this is self-inflicted, not because I'm trying to impress anybody else. I do feel the pressure to go and do something amazing, to go someplace difficult, to accomplish some difficult, archery feat or rifle, or, I feel that. And ironically, I guess, if you do something awesome in the world, in reality, you just tell the story. The story doesn't need anything extra because what you did speaks for itself.
Right.
I remember watching The Last Dance with Michael Jordan. Mm-hmm. The docuseries that was, I think it was on ESPN or something. I think it was like the ESPN 30 for 30, I believe. It was. It's a 10-episode series, I think. Right?
And I watch it a lot.
Yeah, we've watched it over and over because I was a child.
I personally got to watch 1998 in February in Salt Lake City. Watch the Utah Jazz beat Jordan and the Bulls. So I was 10 years old.
Oh man,
1998.
Dude, I am so old. Yeah, I mean, in that video, people were saying, "Well, Jordan did this, and he worked out this contract with Nike, and he did this thing, and he did that thing, and these things made him." Got him these deals, and he sat there, and I remember he said this, and I watched this maybe a year and a half ago or something, and he goes, "I got a deal with Nike because I was the best, like because my game spoke for itself.
Yep,
I got a deal here and here and here because I did the epic stuff.
Yeah,
not because I made some brilliant business move.
Exactly.
Not because I did this or that. My game spoke for itself.
Yep.
And when I look at these films, what we do speaks for itself.
Yeah.
The film, it's not about the film per se. It's an element of it, but it's really about what did we do?
Yeah.
Because what we did was
doing epic things,
was exciting and challenging and interesting.
Because there's very, very few hunts. There are a couple, you get your Arizona, and that's a different type of hard hunt.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of these hunts that, they are hard. And then
some are.
And then you throw on top of that filming and, carrying 100 pounds out of your backpack.
Some of them are just you and your buddy popping holes in each other's mattresses and talking crap most of the time and not seeing any bears. Like, it is what it is. Just tell the story the way it was.
Right.
What have you seen? Just for folks that are listening and might be interested in more hunt film, have you watched any recent hunt film that you were like, "Oh, I really enjoyed that"?
Yeah,
and I'm not there to. I'm looking for just like
there's a couple that I'm like, they do some epic stuff, so I understand it. It's a good film.
Yeah.
But the quality, I would say, because they did the epic thing.
Yeah.
But which is a whole other talent in itself, is the production side of things.
Yeah.
And it's not quite as appealing or epic as I feel, say a Greedy film, because, they didn't necessarily make it feel like you were there on the hunt with them.
Okay.
So they're not like this off factor, like, I'm going to go tell my buddies.
They did the epic thing, but the film itself is very dry.
And it's not something that I'm going to be like, go recommend, like, this was epic. Like, did you guys see that hunt?
Sure.
I don't find that very often on YouTube or even on the Sportsman's channel or wherever. I don't really usually find that. There's a couple. There's one or two that will stand out to me. There's a couple channels that seem to do really, really well. I'll say the Hunting Public. I'm not a whitetail guy.
Yeah.
But I enjoy watching their stuff.
Yeah, me too.
It's
educational.
It's very educational.
I haven't hardly hunted turkeys in my whole life, and yet I find myself watching a freaking turkey.
I know, exactly.
It's like, I would never demean myself to too much turkey hunting. A little bit.
And I think when we talk about doing epic things,
we just offended half our audience.
Right. I think of doing epic things. It's not necessarily fully the epic moment of the hunt and everything like that, but it's also why you're doing that epic thing, or maybe it's not epic, but educating, inspiring. Just that education portion of it. There's a lot of people that don't do that, or the Hunting Public, they do very, very well at that. And so it makes their film much more entertaining to me. And I would probably go recommend more of a boring turkey hunt on stuff like that than I would on some guy's elk hunt or something on a channel. But
that's a long answer.
Yes, yes, it is.
With a lot of vagaries.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to commit to anything, do you?
No, I don't, and I don't.
Okay, let me tell you what I watched recently on the Hoyt YouTube channel. That Alberta bighorn sheep hunt.
Yep.
Was it bighorn? It wasn't Doll. It was bighorn.
It's bighorn.
Alberta bighorn sheep, and it was archery.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a 3% success rate is what the description field said about the hunt. And dude does it. And I watched it, and the production was nice. It wasn't overly produced. It just said what happened. It was I'd like that to be a 4-part series, 30 minutes each, and I'd like more of a POV style,
the day by day
presentation. Yeah. And I'd like a little more than, but what you get is a quick film, and the accomplishment speaks for itself.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, they're like in crotch deep snow in some nasty conditions with a bow and arrow. Mad respect for the guys that were on the show and how they did it. I enjoyed it. Yeah. I enjoyed it a lot because I've been there before and I know how hard that sort of thing is. I told you, just being there, where the sheep are at that altitude in that kind of weather, those kind of conditions, just being there is something that 99% of the hunters won't do in the first place, which is one reason why that success rate is so low.
Yep.
Because most people won't even put themselves into such harsh conditions willingly for an extended period of time to pull off a hunt like that. Look, avalanche areas, snow, cornices, there's some scary stuff when you're up in there, and the weather. And you're up there where these sheep are in that kind of conditions. It was badass.
Yep.
Period.
Yep.
And they pulled it off with a bow and arrow. I mean, that was a good production. I liked it.
And
I would prefer it a different style, but it's pretty cliche. But the hunt, like I said, it spoke for itself. The accomplishment did the work.
And I guess if you're not putting a whole bunch of music in your YouTube video from going from one place to the next, then I'll probably watch your stuff.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of sort of...
I get musiced out really quick.
Yeah, I prefer just the sound of nature.
Yeah,
generally. I mean, I'll throw in a hype reel at the start. You know me. I'll put a little music in here and there, but mostly it's like, nah, I just want you to, like, again, I'm not here to embellish it. Yep. I've said this before. If you use music to hype people up or to build suspense or intensity as you close in and get closer, you cheated. You cheated.
Or
you put it in there to evoke artificial emotion that you couldn't contrive using the video itself and what really happened.
Or if you are using that music for the build-up, it better be freaking epic.
Yes. There's some times where it's done and I'm like, I was totally okay with it.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
I'm annoyed.
You made it up to be something that it was not.
I'll say one of the channels I really like is Stuck in the Rut.
Love Stuck in the Rut.
Their productions are not like super fancy.
Nope.
They're cut and dry. What you see is what you get.
It's raw, authentic. Like that appeals to me way more than a lot of the other stuff.
It's authentic. And it's raw.
Mm-hmm.
And they do the impossible.
Yeah.
Regularly.
Well, they're just doing, and like kind of going back, they're doing the epic stuff.
Right.
And they're just letting that story
tremendous
unfold.
Respect for some of the things that they accomplish and and I enjoy the film. One of the ones that I saw like last year or so was one with Tana Sue.
Mm-hmm.
Tana
Sue Fit. Yep. Adam Grenna's wife.
Yeah, yep. And she was out with her daughter, and they shot that grizzly at, what was it, 7 yards or something?
Too close, that's for sure. That's like,
and it was just her and her daughter,
surrounded
by grizzly bears, and they take this one that comes real close, and her daughter finally pulled the trigger. That's an intense one.
Yeah.
But they have a ton of them I enjoy. I've always liked the hunting public a lot. In fact, if you really watch my stuff, you'll realize that they inspired a lot of some of my views on how to show the film, even though they're all whitetail mostly and
I know.
and
I don't watch
turkeys.
I don't watch a single other whitetail film.
But I found their productions, things about their aspects of their productions I really enjoyed, and I ended up taking parts and pieces from that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who else? I mean,
and I will say this, like, I always still watch Meat Eater and stuff like that. Clay Newcomb and those guys, they're awesome.
Yep.
And
I just want more Western hunting from those guys.
But I still tend to watch some of the other stuff because it is educational.
True.
You know, it's something that when they're cooking food, and which kind of appeals to me. Like, I like to cook, and we cook our wild game and stuff. But when they're even doing fishing, which I'm not a big fisherman, I love fly fishing, but it's like I find myself watching it only because they're going to teach me something that I didn't know that I might use in the future.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I see what you're saying. I agree with that.
Channels like that or shows like that.
I've always been a fan of Meat Eater for sure, and Renella's writing and his storytelling, his voiceover.
Yep,
I think is it's typically not a style of film I like. Yet with Steven Renella, I've always enjoyed it.
Yeah,
and I like the intellectual approach to things. Mm-hmm. There's so many things I'd like to hang out with Renella because I think he and I would have some real interesting conversations because. I think we agree on 99% of things, but the things we don't would be hilarious.
Yeah, right.
Clay Newcomb is just a character. Love that guy.
He's authentic as they get.
Real as can be. He reached out and said how much he was enjoying the films. He's got a great moose.
Yeah.
Guys at Meat Eater are great. I'm thinking of I just saw recently Eric Chester shot like a stud.
He went 5 for 5 this year on elk. Eric gets after it, man.
The guy has killed some stuff over these years, and the more I see, it's great. I'm trying to think. Born and Raised, I haven't got into deep into their season yet.
I will say this: this season is kind of. I've only watched the first couple, but it's.
They always come out with some close encounter elk hunting.
Yes.
In your face.
And I feel like, their production, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
They've gotten, I think they put more time into it. Before it was they were just overloading.
Dude, it's hard to do an episode a day.
Yeah.
Like, that's a feat.
That's a no joke deal.
And you're going to compromise
quality.
Yeah.
Over
but
that,
it's real
but
and
I
authentic.
didn't care because it's like, who doesn't want to see bugling elk?
A lot of us just didn't get enough time to spend in the elk woods during the year, and are like, I'm just going to live through this day after day.
Exactly.
And I don't care. Yeah, for sure. There's quite a few. I saw Levi Morgan on Matthews.
Oh yeah.
I think was it made by Matthews? Maybe.
Yep.
He smoked a really beautiful buck mule deer. It was a cool hunt. I enjoyed watching that.
I do watch Pedro's stuff a lot.
Oh, Pedro's.
I love Pedro.
Can't leave Pedro out.
He's
Lampers
hilarious.
called me yesterday and said he was watching Pedro in Greenland.
Remy, yeah, they were chasing
Remy.
caribou.
And he's like, I was working out, and I got in touch with Pedro. Another one that was good was Chris B. went out and archery hunted moose, and I think it was a 2-part moose series. Or no, there's a version on his channel and one on, I think it was Matthews.
Yeah.
Channel, 2 versions. I'm consuming some here and there.
You know who
because I want to see their editing styles.
Yeah, and I think someone that does a good job of that Meat Eater Renella style is Alpine Carnivore. I watch those guys every now and then, and they do some epic hunts.
Yeah, yeah. They have some. Actually, their filmmaking is enjoyable. Yeah. It's quite enjoyable, and they do some tough stuff. That's true. They put out some interesting content. I like they've borrowed a lot from me.
Yes,
actually
they have. They basically took and made a baby out of Renella and Brian Call.
What's that one guy from Washington?
Sam Young Outdoors, I bet.
Yeah, he's I don't know his Asian descent.
Samong Outdoors.
Samong.
I bet you. I don't know. Tell me if this is the same one or not.
Yeah.
Yes. So I love this guy.
Samong Outdoors. It's spelled Samong Outdoors.
Yep.
He's got almost 60,000 subscribers.
Yes. I watch his stuff I
love his stuff.
I do too because he's authentic,
I love his stuff.
he's real, and he does a good job. He's
he's just a blue collar real dude doing over-the-counter trips, and he's got his
express himself
family
as being the greatest hunter in the world. Nothing.
He's a good editor.
He is. He's a great
producer. I like it's
and it's clean.
Yeah, I like his
way it flows.
I like his stuff. I haven't. I'd like to meet that guy. But you should check his out too. Just kind of riffing here, but those are some ideas for you guys that are maybe looking for more hunting content that you haven't. Some of those names, of course, you've heard of, but Samong is pretty obscure. Alpine carnivore is a little out there that could grow. Good stuff.
There's obviously your Hush. There's the hunting public, but there's not as much as I used to
Mostly what I find is I just find a particular episode that pops up or that I get told about by a buddy, and they don't have a channel. They just made a show, and I'm like, dude, that was really good.
Yep.
So, anyway.
Yeah.
So, folks, thanks for tuning in. I think we're going to wrap it up. Brad's got just cold drip coming off his face.
It got cold out here in the last 15 minutes.
It's nice, actually. I like it. It's covered in snow everywhere.
Yeah.
But look forward to this Sunday's film. And don't forget about the giveaways we got going on. Again, save at Mountain Up, save at Stealthy Nutrition.
Yeah, I got my Stealthy pad right here underneath my buttocks.
Yeah, save at Peak, save at we got some deals going on right now if you stop at the Gritty store.
Yep.
Get a hat and a shirt, sweatshirt, and be entered to win the rifle. We're going to announce all these winners on the 18th. And then Ryan Lampers is going to do a big giveaway with us in sale.
It's small but big in prize.
It's quick.
Cool
it's only going to be
stuff.
1 week long, just before Christmas, I think.
Yeah,
something
there's
like
some
that.
cool items. Like I said, there's only going to be a couple items, but they are well worth it.
It's going to be fun.
Yes.
So, all right, folks, that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Like I said, like and subscribe to the channel. Leave us a comment when you can. We appreciate all that. It helps us get the word out on the show. Thanks for tuning in, and stay gritty.